So the big question is this: how are investors like us, who don't have a PhD in finance or millions to start investing, how do we grow our bank accounts to build real savings and retirements and yet still have the time to do what we really love? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hey guys, Sean Wooten here with the Stock Market Series podcast. Super excited today. They got this cool psychological mindset shift thing that I think is super interesting. It's something I wish I understood a long time ago, and it's this idea of when you have problems or when you have challenges or things that just aren't really working out in your way because of one thing or another. You see this so often in financial markets, right? This idea that you put all this planning and all this effort into a trade, and so often, people see you submit this order to your broker, and it's buy, Apple or whatever, right? Buy them at this price and buy this many, and it's that's so simple. And then if you make a ton of money, people are wow, you spent 5 seconds flat doing that, you're making $1 bajillion an hour. And then if you lose a ton of money, people are wow, that's stupid, you should have researched that more, I can't believe you made that bad investment. And no one's 100%, right? No one's perfect. And so it's this question of how you handle failure, because failure, right, it's just part of the stepping stones to success, and it's part of the path. It's a required and necessary thing. And so as you look at failure, it's so anyway, there's this big recording studio, and I'm trying to get all my stuff into it. I've been here for probably a week so far, and probably pumping out 700 gigs of content. It's just ridiculous. I think I've been in there probably for 73 hours. I've slept in there. I mean, it's sleeping in the office, and it's just insane. So much. And as I walk away from it today, it got locked, and for some reason I can't get in. I don't have key access, even though I reserved it. And so I'm walking away, and I've kind of dunked out, right? So I got 90% of this course recorded, and it's the coolest thing ever. I know it's going to change so many people's lives, and I'm so excited about it. And I just want to get this last little bit done before the weekend. It's just not going to happen. I could pick the lock, but I don't think that's the best plan of action. And I want to kind of talk about that, and then also picking the right thing, because so often you have chances and opportunities to do maybe what's not the right thing, right? And to go and maybe cheat on that test or do what's wrong. And I've talked about it earlier, this idea that I didn't talk about it on here, I was talking about it somewhere else. But it's this idea of if you do something wrong, it's going to just sit in your mind and eat away and crush you. And I remember, a really long time ago, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And I just feel so terrible about this, right? Still, right? Because you want to focus on positivity. You want to surround your mind and your mindset with things that are going to help you grow. And so it's so important to do the right thing, because if you don't, it stays in your mind and it eats you away and it crushes you. And so I was 8 years old, and we went to this football game, and it was raining, right? But they wouldn't let you take the umbrellas inside, so they have piles and piles and piles of hundreds of umbrellas sitting outside this football stadium. And we go to the game, and I never really liked football. I still don't really like football. It's cool if you do, that's awesome. And I have so many friends that play it, and they're the coolest guys ever, and I love them, and I always love supporting my friends and being with them, and that's awesome, right? And I'll go to their games and support them and all that stuff, but just for fun, it's just not really the most entertaining use of time for me. And so we go to this football game and we leave. I was always whining when I was a kid, so my parents would make me go, and I would be first quarter in, and I'd be hey, can we leave? Please. Because you can't force people to do things, right? And you can't force them to change who they are. If someone doesn't like something and you push them into it, it's just not gonna work. Oh my god, this is heavy. I got all these tripods that are not getting used anymore. And so what was it talking about? Move into this situation, right? Whoa. Whoops. So eventually we get out of the football game. I think it was third, fourth, I don't remember. And we finish, and we're walking out the exit, and there's this ginormous abundance, this huge pile of umbrellas. There are just so many. And it's this idea that there's like an abundance of wealth in the world, right? And there's so much opportunity and so much prevalence and so many amazing ways you have to succeed. And that's kind of when I look back at it, that's what I see in this huge pile of umbrellas. I see all this opportunity to be a success and to have like the victory that you desire. For me, being an 8-year-old, like my victory, my happiest moment, my peak potential it would be to grab like one of these, to have an umbrella. I wanted an umbrella so badly. I don't know why we didn't have one, and like I just really wanted an umbrella. And so, it's so easy to make the wrong decision, but the wrong decision is they're oftentimes like the most impactful, the most hurtful ones. Because I wouldn't be telling this story, right, if I hadn't done what I did that day. I wouldn't be, literally regretting this moment every single moment for the rest of my life and using it as a guiding path to steer every single decision I make. It's just insane. So I walk over to this huge pile of umbrellas and I find one, and it's like, oh my god, the nicest umbrella I had ever seen in my life. It had like this gel grip, and it was like this big, stiff, stern, sturdy black umbrella with a red stripe, and the red stripe went from the top to the bottom on one of the panels, and it was just such a complete, hefty, this was the umbrella of kings. This was like one of the greatest umbrellas on the planet. It was insane. And as we were walking into the stadium, a lot of people didn't think they could save their umbrellas. And so, like, they were literally like umbrellas just like all over the place in the garbage. People had thrown away their umbrellas because they didn't think they could bring them in. I mean, it was like, when I say like umbrellas were everywhere, like umbrellas were like scattering the floor, like everywhere you turn, it was just umbrella after umbrella. And so I didn't think too much about picking up this umbrella and walking out of the stadium with it, when in reality, like, that's not my freaking umbrella. And even if there's like 10,000 umbrellas and everybody can have an umbrella, like, it doesn't make it right to steal, right? It doesn't make it right to take what's not yours. As I'm walking away, these two, like, I don't know, they're probably like 20-year-olds. They cut to me like, "Hey, is that your umbrella, little boy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my umbrella." And I lied, I put forth false, wrongdoing, fake information, and just like was untruthful to myself, and just absolutely destroyed like my own sense of being. It was just awful. I mean, terrible decision. All because I was selfish, and I decided that it was worth more for me to take this umbrella from someone than it was to stand true to like being honest and doing the right thing, and like everybody knows the right thing. Like, you do the right thing, and the right thing, and if you deserve to do something or if you don't deserve to do something. And like on this day, like I was just so overpowered by like greed and fear and like never having an umbrella, and like I don't know what it was. It was so long ago. Yet like what it's done is it's changed like everything for me, right? Because like I look back at this and I've never been able to shake it away. And I still have that umbrella, I have no clue like whose it was or like who I would even like think to return it to, because there were just so many people there, right? And I've always kept it with me in like my closet and my car, like everywhere, because it's a really nice umbrella. And it's always like this constant reminder that you've got to like break away from the temptation and take like this short-term pain of not taking someone's umbrella, and the short-term pain of maybe having to suffer through another week or another month or another year without that one thing, because like in your mind, so you're so deeply like like it's not right. And to have the best growth, to have the best mindset, to have the best like wholesome, like you want to be happy with yourself, right? Like you don't want to be messed up or upset excuse me, because of like some freaking stupid umbrella or some like dumb thing that shouldn't have happened. And so it's just like you've got to do the right thing, even when it's like so difficult, and even when you don't think there's a big problem, or even when it like doesn't even hurt anybody. Like, that's the mistake everyone thinks. They think, oh, no one will care, it won't hurt anybody. And yet, 10 years later, I'm looking back at this event, and who is it hurting? It's definitely not hurting the person who lost their umbrella, but it's tormenting me, and it's crushing me, and it makes me feel so bad. And it's I feel like there's this huge debt that I have to some person I'll never meet. They took their umbrella, and it just crushes me, and it makes me realize, for everything I do, especially in financial markets where there is so much lie and so much theft, and insider trading and fake assets and fake accounts, people stealing money, laundering money all over the place. It makes you remember that, how would I feel if that was my umbrella? How would I feel if I was the one getting played out? I was the one getting hurt. I was the one who, had everything crushed, taken away, whatever. I'm just destroyed from that positioning because, someone was greedy, or someone had the just terrible decision to go and steal and take from others what was not theirs to begin with. And it's just this terrible thing to do. And so it always reminds me that it's so important, oh man, to do what's right and to stick with the basis and stick with what to do. And there's so many examples I've had after this event, especially with especially with investments, and sometimes you have bad investments, sometimes you have really, really good investments, and it's so tempting to just totally not tell clients about bad investments, and shuffle them under the rug and ignore them, and lie on the balance sheet, and for taxes, right, and for investors, lie on the balance sheet and fudge numbers, and record future revenues before they actually happen. Do some Enron crap and just totally freaking lie and pretend that you're making tons of money. I remember, Mattel a long time ago, they had this one quarter where they pumped out 10 bajillion Barbies because they thought Barbies were going to be the hottest thing ever, and they were super cocky, super overconfident about their numbers and about what they were doing. And as they pumped out all these toys, all this stuff that just in all reality, they were going super crazy, and they were it was just insane. They thought they were going to sell so many. But in reality, the Christmas season, the holidays that went by, and they sold what they normally sold, right? And there was hundreds, the millions and millions of Barbies just left unsold. And for them at the time, they were a small company, maybe a couple $100 million. And so this inventory and this crap that just didn't sell represented a significant chunk of, their operations. And, at the time, so many businesses, when they start out, they're funded based on debt. They're funded based on investors. And they take, a very, very traditional approach of starting business in the whole, right? And then you have to work to get more and more done over time. And so, because of that, they had tons of bankers that they had to satisfy every single quarter, and they were literally public, right? And so because they were public, there's this stigma, and I absolutely freaking hate it, because I know so many people they have these massive companies, and they're bigger than maybe 10 or 20 or 30% of public companies, and they had this huge success, and yet they always they never went public, and they always kept it private, and they always kept it on the low key, partially because they just wanted to live a quiet life and be humble. But kind of more importantly and more significantly is this idea that they didn't want to deal with the regulatory hassles and having to have their numbers out there, because when your numbers are out there, when you have public oversight and public foresight, there's always this constant pressure to perform at your best and to do ridiculously great every single quarter for the sake of the investors who are literally riding their entire portfolios, their savings, their retirements. It's all based on how your stock performs. It's not you can just go out and tell everybody, hey, our earnings sucked. That's illegal, right? That's insider trading. And so you've got to just be honest with the reports and be honest with the numbers and file it away with the SEC and just let everybody realize over time. And it's I can't even imagine how awful this feeling is. When you're running a public company, and you know that you're going to have an absolute trash quarter. And, people are going to lose hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars based on your poor financial results. And having that pressure stuck up on you, having this terrible thing. And so often, right, these guys, they make tons of money, but they just don't stack up to what investors want. They don't stack up to the analysts and to the predictions. And so even if they make a lot of money, they'll still tank. People will overreact and just abolish their stock price, and it sucks, right? For them, because like that's everything they own. Like, for most of the investors, maybe this investment is like 5 to 7% of their portfolio, but for these guys, like, this is their livelihood, this is their life, and obviously, like, all their investment should be in a company, but like this is what they're going to work to every single day. And like, how do you think the workplace environment is going to change when a company, their stock price decreases by like 30% in a couple of days after a crap earnings report? Like, it's going to crush morale, it's going to crush productivity, and it sucks. And so like, I have so much respect for people that run these public companies. It's like so ridiculously like, I think stressful, right? Because you're everything's public and everybody knows exactly what's going on, and so there's always this constant pressure to perform, this constant pressure to be more and do more. And that pressure, it's helpful and it's great when up times, and it pushes them to succeed and it pushes them to innovate, which is so cool and so powerful. But at the same time, like, it's great for the upside, but it's terrible for the downside, and it crushes their perspectives and their viewpoints. Like, I can't imagine right now, like, GE, they're going through this huge financial restructuring, and their stock is just like, it's just awful what's happened to it recently. They were like $40-50, and then they went to like $8 when I bought them, and like, their whole company is just kind of falling apart, and they have to like change everything, and like, there's this huge pressure to make it work. And it's this question of like, without public oversight, without people looking at them, without this criteria, without this criticism of their underlying business model, would they have success? Would they go through with this restructuring and make it freaking happen? Now, obviously, we're kind of in the midst of that right now. We're going to see how they handle it over time. But it's this question of, would they perform as well if they were private? Or would they perform better because they don't have to fudge the numbers? So, like, what happened with Mattel is they were scared that like their investors would be unhappy and that people would freak out. And if people freak out, like, bad stuff happens, and their whole business is funded on debt. And so if they lose their banker support and they lose their funding and they lose their ability to get loans, they have hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. And if they lose that, like, all of their operations freeze, and they have to fire and lay off tons of employees and cut their toys and cut their lines. And this is a long time ago, but they had to basically stop all business if they couldn't secure this funding, right? Because they were like burning cash without this newfound income and revenue. And so to them, like, lying about these numbers seemed like the only thing they could do to like really have their business succeed. And so this guy comes into the boardroom, and they have this board meeting, and there's like 6 of them in there, and as everybody comes inside, the CEO and her husband or whatever, they run the company as a team, and they've got like all their financial guys, all their engineers, chief leaders of the company. And this one guy says, hey, what if we just book Q1 profits on our Q4 earnings? And like, basically, like, this is like lying, and it's fraudulent accounting. And so instead of like taking the short-term pain of, a minor loss and maybe like a little bit of a tumble and a little bit of a bad public perception, they admit, instead of like taking the pain to admit their mistakes and say, look, we were wrong, this is what happened, it was a bad decision on our part, stuff went wrong, and we regret it, and we're upset and we're sorry about it, and instead of like saying that and going clean with it and coming clean with themselves and with their investors and with those in their lives, instead of coming clean, what they did was just absolutely freaking ridiculous. And they lied, and they recorded like Q1 profits and projected profits on Q4. And what else they did? It was just this insane bogus. They went through all these accounting scandals where they like pretended to be their stores and then called headquarters and had them send in purchase orders for like tons and tons and tons of Barbies, knowing wholeheartedly and for a fact that these would not sell. And they did that for a couple $100 million worth of orders because they had so much extra inventory. And after they like had everybody that they knew and all their suppliers order as much as they possibly could, they still didn't have enough revenue in to meet their projections. And if they weren't public, right? If they were private, like, who cares, right? They didn't meet the projections. They'll just talk it over with the investors. But since they're public, like they've got an image to stand up to, and they've got a reputation, and they've got an earnings report to be with, right? And so they literally like made up orders, and they just like punched in numbers and like recorded revenue that literally was getting pulled out of thin air and did not exist whatsoever. They had warehouses and warehouses of these toys that they like pretended to sell, and then they just sat there because nobody bought them, right? And they just like freaking lied, like 100%. Like there's no ifs, buts. They lied about the numbers because they had this pressure to perform. They had this pressure to be more, and the impending threat of like financial fraud and securities fraud and lying with their accounts like didn't seem to be enough to them to push them away and to stop them from doing it. And it was like so ridiculous because like everything they did, right, it kind of all stemmed from their success, and their success like came from these quality numbers, but they lied and they didn't do the right thing, and at first they get away with it, right? They have like this short-term gain that in reality is going to cost them a lot of their long-term success. And as this goes on, what's really interesting is they get to like Q3 of that year, and everything has been like growing and growing and growing and growing, and it all starts to catch up with them. And they start to realize that like all their numbers are shit. They haven't sold any of these toys, and they have no clue what to do. And then these two leaders, right, the wife, the husband, they go on this vacation, and like it sucks because like so many people, they go on vacation and they can't like actually get away from work, and they can't actually like just take a break, which sucks. And that's why like when you build a business or when you build like assets in your life, you want to make sure that they're assets that you can like walk away from for a week or two and not be freaking out. And I remember like when I first started investing, I would check the stocks every single day, and I think it's so much fun, and I freaking love it. And for people that just get into investing, I see them always checking like their Yahoo Finance or their portfolio apps, and just like giggling, just so excited and so happy to start to see their wealth grow and start to like understand how the markets move up and down and how it changes every day. And like it's this really fun feeling of like, oh, I made this much money today, or oh, I lost this much money today. And then you look at it over the past like day and you're like, oh my god, I made this much money today and I didn't even freaking do anything. Like how cool is that? And I remember when I started having like that passive growth come into my life with my long-term portfolios, like everything changed, and I started to realize like, holy crap, like you can have income like doing literally zero work whatsoever, which is like the coolest thing ever with assets that like you put in a defined amount of work at the beginning, and then they pay you for the rest of your life, which is like so cool. And it changed everything for me and my whole mindset about money and investing. And I don't know, like that's a story for another day, but it just was so cool. That was a long time ago too, which is interesting, but whatever. And so, like, these guys, they fudge the numbers, and so they go on vacation, and she does what like is terrible, right? She calls her office, she calls her secretary, and she just can't stop thinking about work. And her secretary is there, and she says, "Hey, what's up?" And her secretary usually has something that's going on, or some thing that goes wrong, or some toy that's getting worked on. And the secretary, she says nothing, and this really kind of like gets her going and riles her up because like she doesn't know what's up, and she's freaking out, and she is like, "What do you mean nothing? Like in the past 10 years when we've been talking, 5 years or whatever, where we've been together, there's always been something." But she's just like, "Nope, nothing, nada." And it just sucks. It's crazy because like she tried so hard to just walk away, but she couldn't do it. And so the next morning, she gets on a plane with her husband. They cut their trip to like this very nice tropical island place short. They don't even like freaking go, which is terrible. They don't have any vacation whatsoever. And they have this mistake that so many new people, when they're starting up like businesses and when they're scaling their businesses, have. And it's this idea that like you don't trust anybody to like actually run the operations, and you don't like believe in the people that you hire and the people that you work with, like especially once you get past like that 500 employee mark, when you have like this huge team, this huge mastermind of people that are fully competent, and having that one extra person to lead them in the office 24/7 is just not going to make a huge difference because there's just so many people and they all know what they need to do. They all have their very specific roles. And so it's this idea I hear so much with coaching and with business development that you need to like step away and let your people do their things. I remember I used to try to like kind of micromanage all the coders that we had over at Menarads, and manage like everything that they did when they were sort of developing our front end product. And Like, it never worked, right? And I would be like, you need to have this exact color and do this very, very specific thing, and blah, 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 because I wanted to be in control of everything. But it just didn't work, and it came out crap when I was in control of it, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And so when I gave these guys like creative control and creative freedom and the ability to just do like whatever they wanted to do, like all of a sudden everything changed, right? Because instead of like, focusing on me and me and like all these things that I wanted, I just said, look guys, I trust you. This is the end product. This is the one goal that we want to work towards. Let's make it happen. We're a good team. We're a good fit. Everyone's cool together. Let's absolutely crush it and do it together. And so we did that, right? And that's exactly what happened. I walked away, and then like within a month, I had been getting so much more done because I was able to focus on all the finances and all the accounting and all like the executive management and getting everything ready so that like once we went to market, like we could actually like take people's money and like be ready for all that stuff. And it was so much on cool stuff, and all I did was focus on like what I was really, really good at. And I spent months and months and months like learning about tax law and learning about accounting and just learning like what most people would learn in like a couple of years of very dedicated and specialized schooling. I would just work like 16 hours a day every day, going through the exact same content, learning the exact same things in a very compressed period of time, like a very fast learning pace. And so I was able to apply that. I was able to get everything ready. And by the time I was done with that, like within a month, these guys had finished this insane, awesome back-end product. They did such a great job with it. All because they had the creative freedom to go out there and do it on their own. And they were able to do it so much better than I would ever have been able to explain it. I mean, I just didn't have the mindset or the perspective that they had on it. And they did so much better than I could have even dreamed of. And so you just need to back away from the company. You need to back away from the products. You need to back away from whatever it is that you're doing, and let the people that you work with and let the people who are smarter than you and more specialized do their thing and be themselves and get their work done, because they'll do it so much better than you could ever even dream of, which is so powerful. And that's exactly what these two needed to do. They needed to walk away from Mattel and let them handle their problems on their own. Because the business, like, it sounds crazy, but like once you get to a certain point, the less time you spend managing your company, like the more time it becomes its own independent asset, and the more money that it makes, because the people there are pretty freaking smart. And if you tell them that you trust them, and you show them that you trust them by walking away and letting them make their own decisions, all of a sudden they perform so much better than they would ever have when you're there, that they could even dream of or hope for, when it's just you doing everything, because you're just one person and they're like a whole team. And the mastermind in the group is so much more powerful than one single being. And so, I gotta try to wrap this up, but like they come back and they fly in and they come into the board and they go to her secretary and she's like, what's going on? And she points over to the boardroom. They're having this huge meeting in the boardroom. And she walks to the board with her husband. And everyone is like just staring at her, and she knows like something's up, something's bad, and this is not good. They have her sit down, and they've got like all of their bankers there, and they just realize like all the numbers are fake and everything's toppling down, and they lied about everything. And the growth, the bookings, the reportings, everything was just total BS. And their lies, they finally catch up to them, just like they always do. And like what's so crazy is that they go through this process where the investors basically say that they're willing to pull everything out if they don't have new oversight, new management, and new leaders in the company. And that was the day, because they got too involved, because they came back, and because they weren't willing to let these guys work it out on their own, that basically they got fired from their own company. They lost controlling interest. They lost basically all control. And this lady, like, she came back, and she walked into the building every single day for the next 365 days. But she, like, lost her office, she lost her control, she lost her power, and all she did was sit there, and all she did was like try to lead and try to have significance, but her whole role in the company, like from that point forward, was gone, and she basically got fired from her own company. And over the coming months, like the SEC started getting involved, and they had like all these financial reporters and all these investigators come to like check out their numbers. And like if you lie to the public about your numbers, you're gonna get yourself in a lot of trouble. And like she's facing basically jail time, right? Because she like lied about hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue that significantly impacted the public perception of the stock and thereby like changed all these investors' returns. And the instant that this scandal got out, the instant that everybody knew about it, the stock dropped like 30 freaking percent, like in a day. And this woman, remember, she had terrible diversification, and all of her money was in the company, and she lost like a third of her net worth, like in 24 hours. And it was just absolutely freaking berserk. And it was all because of this one terrible incident where she decided that it would be better to lie than to take the heat and move forward as a company. Because if she just freaking told the truth, it would have been so much better. So that's really the biggest thing to come through here, is to tell the truth. Because if you don't, like, first of all, like, it'll come back to bite you in the butt. And second of all, it'll totally crush, like, your mental attitude. And it'll make you feel constantly in debt. And I'll finish with this one last story, just because I think it kind of sums it all up, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I feel terrible about it. And I'm about to go, and I'm about to change everything, and I'm about to be, right this wrong, and fix this mistake. But it's still really important. It's something that I haven't been able to forget for probably like, I think 7 years. And it was a long time ago. I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and we went on this field trip with my math teacher to like this museum at NC Chapel Hill. And as we're going through, the campus and everything, we go to like the school bookstore, and they have like this one book, and I still have this book, and I probably should read it. And I was so intrigued by the title. And at the time, I was like so into astrophysics and space and astronomy. When I grew up, I was like, I want to be an astrophysicist when I grow up. And I was watching like all these science shows and all this TV, and I was like so excited. I was just this young guy, and I was like super pumped and dedicated. And I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like astrophysicist. I was going to be like, there's this one guy, his name is Michio Kaku, and he's like a world-renowned guy. He's one of the most influential people in my early life, because he showed me that like if you go 100% and you go hardcore, like you can have success. And I've written so much about him, and he's just like the coolest guy ever. He's like one of the most renowned physicists ever, because not necessarily like his work is the best, because his work is insane, right? But that's not what separates him from everybody else. What separates him from everybody else is that he has an insane amount of research and work that he does. And then what he does is he publicly shares everything, and he just connects with like the Discovery Channel, the Science Channel, and all these people that have like distribution networks. And he connects with them, and he collaborates with them, and they put work together that like fundamentally changes how like the public perceives science. And it inspired me for so long to want to go and be like the scientist guy. And it was the funniest thing ever. It was so nice. And so there was this book that I saw at the bookstore. It was like a history of the universe, or a brief history of everything in the world, or in time, or a brief history of the universe, something like that. And I see this book, and I see the cover of it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. I want to know that. But it was like $35. And I brought like $20, I think. My parents gave me $20, something like that. Like, I didn't have money. And I was like, oh, but I really, really, really want this book. And so like I go to my math teacher. I'm like, hey, will you please help me get this book? And he gives me like $20 to get the book. And I get it, and like the cover and everything about it just makes me so excited and so happy. And it was like the best moment ever. He's like, hey, just like pay me back tomorrow, right? And so, I come home with the book, come home with everybody, and my parents are like, hey, what'd you get with, the money we gave you? I'm like, oh, I got this book. And they're like, oh, awesome, that's great. And, like, I was like probably like 11 or maybe 12. And so like, I didn't have like any money, right? At least I don't think I did. And I remember like when I was growing up, I was like always like super, super cheap, and I would never really want to spend any of my own money. I always want to save it. And I didn't really know why. I just like, for a long, long, long time, I would do that. And it's a story for another day. And there's a lot of shifts that's had in my life ever since. And anyway, that's a different story. And we can get to that, another time. But I go to my parents, and I had this fear, like, that I didn't want to tell them, like, I actually, like, spent more than you guys gave me. And I had, like, lied, and I had been in debt, and I, wasn't wholesome. And I, like, wasn't really my money, and I couldn't really afford this. And instead of taking that temporary pain of, like, coming clean and being transparent and being honest and saying, hey, I didn't have all the money, and I asked my teacher for it, and this is what happened. What should I do? Can you guys help me pay him back? Or, like, what should I do, right? Instead of taking that temporary pain and like working through the problem together, what I did was totally wrong, and I just didn't say a thing about it. And like I totally lied to them, I lied to myself, I lied to my teacher, I lied to everybody, and just like didn't do anything. I didn't pay him back. the money the next day, the next day, next day, or ever. And I felt so guilty and so bad about it. And like I'm still thinking about it like years and years and years and years and years later. And like I know for a fact, like this guy, he doesn't care, and he totally has forgotten about it. Yet this negative act that I did has like fundamentally changed all my thoughts, right? And it's made me realize the importance of transparency and the importance of telling the truth, the importance of coming clean with others. All because like years and years and years ago, I made this one mistake that has stuck with me, and the grief and the sadness and the evil from it has just kind of like permeated in my mind and grown and grown and grown. And over time, it's not like this $20 that matters, right? But it's the mental effect that it has, and this idea that like I did something wrong, and I got away with it. It makes me feel so bad. And every time I look at this book, I feel guilty. I've never even read like the first page of it, because it just feels so awful about the story behind it and how I got it. And only like now I have like this huge debt I feel to him. And every time I see this guy, like, or at least I used to. I mean, I'm gone now, but like I would always just feel awful, and it would just destroy that relationship. It would destroy that connection, and it would crush me thinking about it. And so like ask yourself this question, like when you're about to do something that is wrong, and you're about to maybe take like a short-term gain that's going to cause a lot of long-term pain. Ask like, is this really worth it? And in the future, like, could this really like hurt everything for me? And a lot of times you don't know it at the time, and like I definitely didn't realize it at the time, when I was taking that umbrella, or when I was taking this guy's cash to buy this book. But like now that I look back at it, like I feel so bad, and I've never been able to shake it away. And it's just been this ingrained in me for so long. It just was not worth it whatsoever. So always remember that like anything you do where you're making like the wrong decision, it's the wrong decision. Like don't think about it in the moment. And don't think about it like, oh, it's just like $20 or something, or it's just someone's umbrella or whatever. Think about it in terms of like, would somebody, if I'm looking back at this in 5 years, and I want to be like this really successful and wealthy and happy guy, would that really successful and wealthy and happy guy, would that future image I have of myself lie? Would that future image I have of myself do this negative thing and have this bad act? And ask yourself, would who I want to be in the next 5 years do what I'm about to do? And if the answer is no, then no matter how much gain you have there is to come from it, or how much like profit you can make, or how much happiness or whatever, like if it's just not the right thing to do, you've got to do the adult thing. You got to walk away from it and say no. And what's interesting is like 95% of our lives we do happy things, and we're happy and we do the right thing. But that 5% where we do wrong things is what we remember more than anything else. And it's terrible. But you'll remember your wrongdoing so much more than the things you do right. And so you really want to avoid like all these negative situations and all these wrongdoings at any cost possible. At all costs, right? And just do the right thing. So that was my lesson for today. I'm sure you guys are smart and you know that like you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't cheat, you shouldn't steal. But even if it's like small things that don't seem like they're going to be a big deal, it's this idea that what you do now and what you do in the short term and how you treat yourself like immediately will have this huge impact on the way you think about yourself, the way you perceive all your actions and everything you do in the future, and how everything changes based solely on what you're doing like right now. And so you want to make like the right. Oh my God, you're the best! Thank you. Yay! Thanks. Have the best day ever. Oh, it's so warm here. Thank you. Oh man, wow. Yes. Okay. And everything changes. Like the instant that you realize you've got to be yourself, you got to be wholesome, you got to be truthful. You have to stick with like what you know is the right thing to do, because it's gonna have such an insanely powerful long-term payoff that like changes everything, because you're so in with yourself. And then when you're looking back at your past, instead of focusing on the negative things, there are no negative things, and so you can think pretty much exclusively about the positivity and what really happened that was right and what was good for you and what was great for your life. And as soon as you do that, like, everything changes, and it's just so powerful. And it all comes from this ability to just step back and think about, is this something that I really, really want to do? And if it's not, just don't do it and do the right thing. So that's the takeaway from today, guys. I hope you got a ton of value from this, learned a whole lot, and go out there, apply it, and absolutely crush it. Thank you so much for listening, and have the best day ever. I'll see you guys later. So thank you. Woo! Have fun, guys. Thanks. Bye. Want more stock market secrets? If so, go get your free copy of my best-selling book, 9 to Noon. You can get your free copy plus $11,176 of unannounced bonuses completely for free at 9tonoonsecrets.com. Inside 9 to Noon, you'll find the top 38 secrets we use to double our portfolios every 2 years and make upwards of 10% per trade daily.